Japan had a hierarchy. Samurai on top. Farmers second. Artisans third. Merchants dead last. The logic was simple. Farmers grow food. Artisans make things. Merchants just move things around and take a cut. They produce nothing. They deserve nothing. That was the official position of the Japanese government for 250 years. By the end of those 250 years, merchants were bankrolling samurai, erasing daimyo debt with a handshake, and running the largest city on earth. This is how the people ranked last ended up running everything. In 1603, Tokugawa Ieyasu unified Japan under a single government and got to work designing a stable society. He borrowed an idea from Confucian philosophy: rank everyone by how useful they are. At the top, samurai. The warriors who maintain order. Below them, farmers. Without food, nothing works. Despite being peasants, they were officially ranked second. Below farmers, artisans. They build the tools and goods society needs. Useful, but not essential. At the bottom, merchants. They buy low and sell high. They exploit the work of others. In Confucian philosophy, this was considered the least honorable profession a person could hold. The system was called Shinokosho. 4 characters. 4 ranks. And for the next 2.5 centuries, those 4 characters would define who you were allowed to be in Japan. Here is the problem with ranking people who control money at the bottom of society. Money doesn't care about rank. By the early 1600s, Japan was experiencing something it had never seen before: peace. No wars. No burning cities. No armies marching across rice fields. Peace meant trade. Trade meant someone had to move goods from where they were made to where they were needed. And someone had to take a cut. Osaka became the center of this new economy. Rice from every domain in Japan flowed through Osaka. Merchants built warehouses along the river. They created sophisticated financial instruments, futures contracts for rice harvests, before most of Europe had heard of the concept. By the mid-1600s, Osaka was moving more goods than any city in the world. The city's merchants had a name for it: Tenka no Daidakoro. The kitchen of the entire realm. And the people who ran the kitchen were ranked last. Here is what nobody talks about when they talk about the samurai class. They were broke. Samurai were paid in rice stipends. A fixed amount every year, tied to the yield of a domain. But rice stipends were fixed. The cost of living in Edo was not. Samurai needed swords. Ceremonial clothing. Gifts for officials. Horses for processions. All of it cost money. And the rice stipend never stretched far enough. So they borrowed. From merchants. At first it was individual samurai, lower-ranking warriors quietly taking loans from the moneylenders in town. But the problem scaled up fast. Domain lords, daimyo who controlled hundreds of thousands of rice bushels worth of territory, were running structural deficits. They spent more than they collected. Year after year. For generations. By the late 1700s, many of the great daimyo houses owed debts that would take decades to repay. The shogunate itself carried enormous obligations. The people ranked last held the notes. In Osaka in the early 1700s, there was a merchant family called Yadoya. They had started as lumber merchants, then moved into rice brokering, then banking. By the time of their peak, the Yadoya family was the wealthiest private family in Japan. Possibly in Asia. They lived accordingly. Lavish house. Fine goods. Parties that would have embarrassed minor daimyo. In 1705, the shogunate confiscated everything. The official charge: living beyond their station. A merchant displaying wealth above what their rank permitted was an insult to the social order. Their assets were seized. The family was erased. But there is a detail that almost never makes it into the history books. The Yadoya family was owed massive sums by dozens of daimyo. When the shogunate confiscated Yadoya's assets, those debts disappeared. The lords who owed Yadoya money were suddenly free. The confiscation was not a punishment. It was a debt cancellation. And it worked so well that the shogunate would do it again. 3 times in the next century, wealthy merchant families would be punished for excess at precisely the moment their outstanding loans to the ruling class became inconvenient. The people ranked last had become too important to be allowed to exist. But merchants kept coming. The families that survived were the ones who learned the lesson. Do not display wealth. Do not loan to the government if you can avoid it. Diversify quietly. Stay humble in appearance no matter what you hold in your ledgers. The Matsui family started as sake brewers in the 1600s. They shifted into dry goods. Then into currency exchange. They set up one of Japan's first retail stores where they sold goods at fixed prices, radical for an era of negotiation, and built a network across the country. They charged the shogunate for government currency exchange services. Quietly. Professionally. Without ever appearing threatening. The Sumitomo family worked in copper. Japan's copper mines in Shikoku were some of the richest in Asia. Sumitomo didn't speculate. They processed, refined, and exported with precision discipline that made them indispensable to the state. Both families survived the Edo period intact. Not despite being ranked last, but because being ranked last taught them to be invisible. By the late 1700s, the contradiction became impossible to hide. Domains were selling samurai rank to wealthy merchants. The price varied, but a modest samurai title could be acquired for roughly 30 ryo, the equivalent of several years of a commoner's salary. Wealthy merchants paid it without blinking. The thing they were ranked beneath, they were buying. The shogunate tried reforms. Sumptuary laws regulating what merchants could wear, what houses they could build, what entertainments they could attend. Enforcement was inconsistent. The laws were ignored by anyone with enough money to make ignoring them comfortable. The ideological foundation of the hierarchy had collapsed. By the early 1800s, it was a performance. Everyone knew it. No one said it. Then in 1868, the Meiji Restoration dissolved the Tokugawa government and abolished the old class system entirely. In the chaos of the transition, the question of who would fund Japan's industrialization had a quick answer. Mitsui. Sumitomo. Kanoik. The great merchant houses that had spent 2.5 centuries being ranked last, learning to survive invisible, building financial networks across the entire country. They became the first zaibatsu, the industrial conglomerates that would build Japan's railroads, steel mills, banks, and shipping lines. Ranked last in 1603. Running the industrial economy of a modernizing nation by 1880. The hierarchy lasted 250 years. The people it was designed to suppress outlasted it, funded the system that replaced it, and shaped the economic institutions that still define Japan today. The lesson the Tokugawa government never intended to teach: when you force talented people to work invisibly, they get very good at it.